Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at rctech.net. Now this is the accompany video from the second airbrush how-to article on rctech.net. Now if you haven't seen those articles, go to rctech.net and check them out for yourself. There's article 1 and this is for article 2. I'm going to go over some similarities today with the single action airbrush and the double action airbrush. Now today we're going to be drawing some simple lines and dots with each airbrush so you can see how similar they really are. In the next article, we'll go over some differences between the two. We're going to start with the single action airbrush. Now keep in mind, both single and double action airbrushes, they both have two actions, air and paint flow. The single action refers to the button on top. This button just presses down and that releases air. That does not adjust paint flow at all. The paint cone on the front here, that's what adjusts the flow of paint, okay? So just keep that in mind. They both have two actions, but the button only controls one. Now let's go ahead and try some fine lines. And I've got this flow cone down here tightened up fairly well. Okay, so I've loosened it up, and now I'm going to back away from the paper. Now on the fine lines, I was right up against the paper, and now I'm going to back just a little bit. So now we've got some thicker lines here, and remember I opened up the flow cone just a little bit, and I backed away from the paper a little bit. Now as you'll notice, the further back from the paper you are, the more overspray you're going to have. And that's kind of like a fuzz around what you're painting. That's normal for both single and double action. We do have some workarounds. If you're working on some art and you don't want that, we can use stenciling, we can use tape. I mean, there are ways you can start with a finer line and then fill it in. That's a good way to do it as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up even more, and I'm going to fill in between these two lines. Now as you can see, as I'm getting close to this line here, I've still got a little space between the thin line and the thick line. I'm already getting overspray coming over the thin line. Like I said, we can remedy that with tape or stencils, or even if you have, for instance, one line. Well, we don't really need to get too much into this. Let's talk about this later on. Right now, let's just keep it simple, and we're going to do lines thin and thick. And here you have it. We have thin lines, we have thick lines. You can see we had to open up the flow cone, bring the airbrush back a little bit, and to get the thicker line, close the flow cone down and put the airbrush right next to the paper, and put the airbrush right next to the paper, and you'll get your thin lines. Let's go ahead and start some larger dots. So I'm going to open up the flow cone. Okay, so as you can see, there's a wide range of sizes that we can make with just a single action airbrush. One needle size. Now I've got a number 3 needle on this, and that is something we'll have to get into a little bit later about the different needle sizes ranging from 1 to 5. And just to know, I've got a medium needle size on here, which is a number 3. And we're able to get some pretty fine lines, some really fine dots, and then we're able to get some pretty large dots. Alright, so here we have the double action airbrush, and again it still just has two actions, except on this one you push down for air and you pull back for paint. Now I've got paint loaded in this and I don't want to spray it all over the place, but you'll see what we're going to do. Let's start with some thin lines, and I'm going to basically do the same thing I did, except with the double action I've got to push down. I'm just going to, instead of adjusting a flow cone to adjust the needle, I'm going to pull back slightly on the lever. And underneath this, I'm going to pull back a little bit further on the lever, on the double action lever, and I'm going to back away from the surface even more, and I'm going to get an even thicker line. Okay, let's go ahead and do some dots now. As you'll notice, one of the major differences that you're seeing, or hearing rather, is that I kept the air flowing all the way across. I kept it pushed down, but I was just moving the lever back and forth. On the single action, every dot you heard tss, tss, tss. This one, you can push down on the air and have airflow without paint coming out. I'm going to pull back further on the lever. I'm going to remove the airbrush from the surface just a little bit, pull it back a little bit more. And we'll try to get some dots about this size right here. Okay, I'm going to pull back even further and further on the lever as well. Okay, and even more. Well, there you go. You've got small dots, you've got large dots, you've got small lines, you've got large lines. What happens if you're trying to make, I don't know, a large, thick, heavy line, but you don't have enough airflow? Let me show you. You're going to still cover a fairly large surface, but you don't have a lot of paint flow. I said airflow, I meant paint flow. You don't have a lot of paint flow, so what happens is you give like a shadow effect. Now that is actually very important, and it's used tremendously when you're airbrushing, when you're trying to create three-dimensional objects, and you want to cast a drop shadow or an inner shadow or anything like that. Alright, so what happens if you try to make a really fine line and you have way too much paint flow? Let's see. I'm going to start off with just a little bit of paint flow, and as the line goes, I'm going to increase paint flow so you can see the difference of what's going on. I had the airbrush the same distance from the paper surface here the whole way through. I just increased the paint. Now again, this paper soaks up paint. So if we were on a hard surface, I mean, you would have just blown out areas and running all the way down here. here you have an example of what can be done with just one airbrush and one color paint. As you can see, you know, just by pulling the airbrush away from the paper and adjusting the amount of paint flow, you can get tremendously different effects. You can get fine lines, you can get shading, you can get all types of effects with just one airbrush, one needle size, and one color paint. Thank you for watching, and thanks for checking out the articles on rctech.net. Like I said, if you have not seen these airbrush articles, go to rctech.net and check them out. There's all types of great articles on there on the home page. Hey, stay tuned. Let me know what you think about the video. If you are reading the articles and you saw this video, what do you think about me doing the videos to accompany the article? Do you like the idea? If so, I'll keep doing them. I'll make some more. Maybe we can get into other topics as well. But yeah, absolutely. Leave a comment on this video, let me know what you think, and if you don't mind, leave a comment on the article too, and let me know what you think of the article and the video there as well. Hey man, I thank you so much for watching, and I thank you for reading the articles. I'm Matt LeMay, and I'll see you next time.